Chapter 25, Stars, 1941. It was quite dark on the stairs. Softly, I knocked the arranged signal. Once, long pause. Twice, short pause. 3 times. Inside, I heard cautious noises. Someone opened the door. It stayed dark. A hand slid along the door frame. The lock cracked. A small black gap between frame and door slowly grew wider. The only door opened all the way after I had whispered my name 3 times. I slipped inside and waited in the pitch-black hall until the door had been closed again, equally gently. A hand touched my arm, held it, and pulled me along. I recognized the grip. It was the rabbi. We crept to the living room. The rabbi scratched at the door. Then he pushed it open. There was no light in the living room either. The rabbi lit a single candle only after we stood inside the room. The living room had a grim, hopeless look. Every window was thickly covered. By the light spots on the walls, one could still make out where the furniture had stood. On the floor lay a pallet of old blankets, mattresses, and rags. The table in the center of the room seemed the only usable piece of furniture left. And on the table, in all its splendor, sat the candle in its silver Sabbath holder. "Where's Friedrich?" I asked. Sitting at the table, Herr Schneider shrugged his shoulders. "Gone to see friends," he answered. "Curfew must have surprised him there. He'll probably stay there till morning." The rabbi had sat down. He picked up an old coat from the floor. "You have better eyes than I. Could you please thread this needle for me?" He handed me a needle and a piece of black thread. While I tried to thread the needle, the rabbi explained, "It's time again, you see. Once more we must wear a yellow star." He pointed to a pile of yellow stars on the table. The yellow stars with black rims, the size of saucers, had to be fastened over the left breast. They were formed like the stars of David. The word Jew was woven in the center, and letters resembling Hebrew. Herr Schneider got up. He bowed to me as if on a stage. Then he undid the knot on his scarf and hung it over the chair. With his left hand he pointed to his left side. On his coat was a yellow star. He unbuttoned his coat. On his jacket was a yellow star. He opened his jacket. On his waistcoat, a yellow star. In the old days, Jews had to wear pointed yellow hats. His voice was mocking. "This time it's yellow stars. We've gone back to the Middle Ages." "And soon," the rabbi added, "soon they'll perhaps burn us, as in the Middle Ages." "But why?" I asked. "Why?" the rabbi repeated softly. "Why? It's decided in heaven who gets raised and who gets humbled. The Lord our God, his name be praised, has chosen us among all peoples. Because we are different, just because we are different, we are persecuted and killed." Herr Schneider had sat down again. He pointed to a box where Friedrich usually sat. Calmly, the rabbi stroked the star he had just sewed onto his coat. He put aside the needle and took off his glasses. Looking over the smoky flame of the candle, he began to tell a story. Solomon. There once was a king whose advisors came to him and said, "Lord, our master, your warriors have long been idle. Payment is poor, and they have been unable to gather booty in either war or revolt. They sit in idleness and think unlawful thoughts. Show them, O master, an enemy so that they will not afflict their own people." The king weighed their words carefully, then they commanded, "If my warriors are in such sore need of deeds, permit them to kill all the Jews in a town you may name. They may keep a third of their booty, but the rest belongs to me, their king." In the town that was selected, there lived 3 devout Jews. The man's name was Solomon, his wife Gadel, and they had named their son Solomon. Shlomi heard about the command of their king, so he went to his wife and he said, "We are both old. What use would it be to flee? We won't get far before we are caught and put to death. Even if we manage to escape, hardship and poverty would follow us. Let us, therefore, sell all that we own. Solomon, our son, shall go. What we receive from the sale of our goods will be sufficient for him to get away. Another land will offer him shelter, and the peace of our Lord will be with him." Gadel, his wife, lowered her head and said meekly, "Do what you feel is right. The Lord our God is almighty, and no one has explored all his ways." And Solomon sold everything they owned, even their bedstead. But before Solomon could make his farewells, the warriors of the kings approached their town. Fear and horror preceded them. Noise filled the town. Kneeling Jews begged for mercy. But the warriors' lust for booty made them forget all the pity. They entered the town and butchered everything that lived. Ravishing the dead, they entered their houses. They took everything that seemed of value. the goblets made of silver, the cow from its shed, but they destroyed or burned everything they considered useless or worthless. When Shalom heard the warriors approaching, he and Gadel hid their son, who knew nothing of the plan his parents had made. Then the two went to meet the warriors. Greedily, the warriors searched for treasure. Under threat, they forced Shalom to show his rooms. He willingly led them from cellar to attic. He showed everything except the hiding place. "My wife and I, we are old and we have lost everything," he explained. The warriors searched the empty rooms in vain and felt Shalom had made fools of them. In their anger, they struck down Shalom and stabbed Gadel, his wife, in the stomach. Then they hurried on, afraid to miss out on booty elsewhere. Bleeding, Shalom pulled the screaming Gadel to a door. "Here," he said, "we will die, and thus protect Solomon even in death." Gadel nodded. Covering her face with bleeding hands, already dying, she began to pray. "The Lord is almighty, and his patience is everlasting." Shalom, too, felt his life dwindling from him. He lay down beside his wife, and thus barred the entrance against the plundering warriors. And while his blood flowed from him in streams, Shalom prayed to his God in tears. my God, why hast thou forsaken me, and art far from my help at the words of my cry? O my God, I call by day, but thou answerest not, and at night there is no solace for me. Yet thou art holy, O thou that art enthroned upon the praises of Israel. In thee did our fathers trust. They trusted, and thou didst deliver them. Unto thee they cried, and escaped. And thee they did trust, and were not ashamed. But I am a worm, and no man. And Shalom died in the middle of his prayer. His blood mingled with Gadel's. During their search for booty, the warriors of the king spit on the dead, but they did not cross the bloody barrier. Solomon remained hidden from their eyes because his parents still protected him, even in death. Horror and death roamed the town for 2 whole days. Only smoking ruins and piles of bodies rimmed the paths made by warriors. And Solomon went on earth with his tears, but still he did not know of his parents' sacrifice, of how they had given their lives to save his. Sadly, he prepared their graves with bare hands, and in the custom of the Holy Scriptures, he honored his parents for 7 days, huddling on earth with naked feet. Then he journeyed to a distant land to seek peace there. And in their camp, the king's warriors hoped soon to receive new orders that would permit them to lay waste another town.